Welcome and thank you for standing by. All participants are in listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Deb Revere. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you so much. Just making sure that you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited for today's webinar, as this is often a highly requested topic every time we bring it around. So our session today will focus on the mapping feature on data.census.gov and how to get the most out of it. Our presenter will show you the basics, like how to get started with the map feature, useful tips and tricks, but also how to render a map from selected variables and how to create a map from scratch. My name is Deb Rivera, and today I'm joined by several of my colleagues, and we will be providing support for our speaker. We will be monitoring the chat to send you helpful links and also answer as many questions as we can. But before I hand things off to our presenter, just want to go over a few items. We are recording the webinar today, and all of the materials for this training will be available through the Census Academy website. We will also have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation where we will pull some questions from the chat and ask them to our presenter. To send your question, you can use the all panelist option so that we can all see your question. We ask that you please don't share personal or sensitive information through the chat, and that you ask questions that are related to the topic of today's presentation. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I would now like to turn over the presentation to Tyson Weister.
Great. Thank you, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar this afternoon, making the most of mapping on data.census.gov. My name is Tyson Weister, and I work on the communications team for data.census.gov. Very excited that we get to spend the afternoon today diving into the mapping functionality on the site. What we have planned is primarily going to focus on tips and tricks and a live demonstration. So what we have are a few different examples that we're going to work through today. I'll show you some information on slides, and then we'll go to the live site, complete a mapping activity, and move on to the next example. We'll start out with basic mapping functionality and then build on this to show you additional functionality for mapping, as well as different types of scenarios that you'll come across creating maps on data.census.gov. The first four examples we're going to work through are on creating maps for data. The last example is going to show you how to use the map in order to select your geography first in a visual way, and then go and get data in a table format at the end. Once we've done that, we'll also show you some resources for learning more, and then open up for your questions through the chat. Before I get started, just want to highlight here on a high level, if nothing else that you get out of today, the most important thing for creating thematic maps is that there are a few different steps. All of our maps today and on the site are table-based. So the first step is to find a table that contains the data you want to map out. In this process, you'll also find it helpful to familiarize yourself with the table layout. We'll talk more about that throughout our examples. You'll want to select your geography at some point and then create your map. So do know that these are all important steps in creating a map. We do offer multiple pathways to create a map on data.census.gov, so they don't always have to occur in this exact order, but they are all steps that you'll want to go through anytime you create a map. And again, that applies to the first four examples where we're creating a thematic map to map demographic or economic data, things like population, poverty, or number of businesses. And then the last example, kind of selecting the geography. We talked about this already, so we'll go ahead and dive into our first example. It is on how to get started with mapping, so it's going to be a more basic example. We'll show you how to map the Hispanic population for all states. On the live site, you'll want to pull up data.census.gov. we do recommend using Google Chrome. And as a note, I mentioned that one of the important steps is finding the table that contains the data you want to map out. For this webinar today, I'll use a variety of strategies to pull up different tables. If you'd like a detailed look on how to go about searching on the site and best practices for using the single search bar or the advanced search, I would highly recommend checking out our other educational resources. You can access them through some of the links in the upper right, for instance, the help button. So don't get too focused on the specific ways I go about searching. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and type Hispanic into the single search bar and press enter.
This is Deb. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We are seeing the slides in PowerPoint.
Oh, yep, I can see that here. Let me see if I can't stop and get this fixed. Just one moment.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you know. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, and I just swapped back and forth. That was intentional just now. So let me actually go back to the beginning. What I had mentioned is that you go to data.census.gov. We do recommend using Google Chrome. And then there's that help button in the upper right. And then the step that I've done so far is to type Hispanic into the single search bar, and then I press enter. And then here we're all caught up. So the next thing that you'll want to do at some point is select your geography. One of the ways you can do it is by using the filters on the left-hand side of your screen. So you'll see a category that says geography. Go ahead and click that. And at the top, we wanted to select all states in the US. I see a box for states. So I'll go ahead and click the box. And then it starts loading up the available options. I'm going to be looking for this checkbox at the top that says all states within the United States. As a tip, when you're creating a map on data.census.gov, you do have more flexibility if you select your geography through the checkboxes using the filters as we just shown, rather than typing your geography into the single search bar. We'll talk more about that later. It's also the most precise way to select your geography on the site. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and click the X at the top of my screen. Now we're going to create a map, but we said how important it is to look at the tables first. So I'm going to click at the top where it says tables. We want to first find a table that contains the data we want to map out. At the top, I can see here, we're clicked into table P2. It's called Hispanic or Latino, and not Hispanic or Latino by race. So on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see what the table data looks like. As a note, the filters and results panels are expandable and collapsible. So when you want and need to look at them or use them, you can expand them. And when you want to devote more space on your screen to the table or the map, you can simply click the buttons on the left to expand and collapse these panels. On the right-hand side of the screen, just want to take a brief look at this table. We can see the data comes from the 2020 decennial census. It provides data for the universe of total population. And the first row of the table says total. So we're getting total population in the first row. And in the second row, we're getting Hispanic or Latino. As we follow that row across, we can see these data across each state. For example, Hispanic or Latino population of 256,847 in Arkansas, based off of the 2020 census. So with that pretty easy table layout here, we know that the data we want to map out are contained in table P2 and that it's in the second row. We're ready to create our map. We've also selected our geography already. So you'll want to go ahead and click the tab at the top that says Map. From here, you'll want to make sure that you're still clicked into the table that contains the data you want to map out. Here we can see that with the orange bar and shading on the left for table P2. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this panel now. Now we can see the map across our full screen. You'll want to make sure that the map is set to the geographic level that you're interested in. And we can see this a couple different ways. You can see it showing state level boundaries, and the states we selected on our map are shaded in color. There's also a layer button at the top of our map. And once you click that button, it will also confirm the primary geographic area for your map. It's showing the state level because of the checkbox as well as the shading next to it. So that's typically automatically done for you, especially in instances where you only selected one type of geography. It's very smart at defaulting to the correct area. So we're almost there. We just have one more step left to do, and that's to tell the site that we want data for Hispanic or Latino. You can do that very easily by clicking into the Variables button in the upper left, and then click the word total or the drop-down menu icon to the right of it. Once you do that, what we're going to see here are all of the data variables that were shown in the table we just looked at. You can map out any of them in this map. We were looking at a relatively simple table, and the item that we were interested in was in the second row of the table. It's also the second option in the data variable drop-down menu that says Hispanic or Latino. So I'll go ahead and click Total Hispanic or Latino. I'll click the Variables button again to get rid of that pop-up window. And now we can see the map across our full screen. So with just those couple of clicks, we've created a map of exactly what we want. This tells us that states with darker shades of blue have higher Hispanic or Latino populations based off of the 2020 census. The legend on the left shows you what the different data values mean. And you can also click on the different areas on your map. For instance, click on California, and you can see specifically that there were over 15 million Hispanic or Latino population counted in the 2020 census. So going back here to our example, we showed you how easy it is to start the process to create a map. I want to show you some additional functionality at this point, how you can customize your map, maybe change your geographic selection, edit the legend, and even navigate back to the table we were looking at earlier. For this example, I'm going to show the Hispanic population for all counties in the U.S. and show some different functionality. So going back to the live site here, one of the options that you can see at the top of your map, and before I do that, I'm actually going to expand the filters once more, just to remind us that we did have a geography selection. So all states in the U.S., whenever your geography selection was selected through a filter checkbox, it will have an X next to it, not a lock icon. And you can click that X to remove the geography selection, or you can click the Clear Geos button at the top of your map. And just to help keep you straight, the Clear Geos button also has an X to the top. So the X's mean you can delete it. The lock means you would have to rerun from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and click Clear Geos. I'm going to say, are you sure you want to clear all of the selected geographies, and choose Clear. Once I do this, what we're going to see is the map will no longer have shades of blue. It's still set to the state level simply because that's the default shown on the map when no geographies are selected, but we don't have any shaded or selected areas. From here, again, keep in mind anytime that you want to edit your geography selection, the filter panel is accessible to you at all times. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Geography. And if you click Geography again, it will reset and clear back to the primary geography page. So we had used this initially to select all states. We'll now use it to select all counties in the U.S. We'll choose County. It will load up some options for us, including a checkbox at the top for all counties within the U.S. I'll mark the checkbox. And then we see it's added to the upper left as a selected area. I'll click the X at the top. And the system is working to load the data and update our map. So here with just those couple of clicks, What we can see here on our map is that we're still looking at data for Hispanic or Latino from the 2020 census, but it's showing it for all counties in the U.S. And it shows us that the counties with darker shades of blue have higher Hispanic or Latino populations. I want to show you some other functionality here that is available to you on the map. You can edit the year. In some situations, tables provide data across years. In this example, 2020 and 2010 are available. So do keep in mind before we do this, I want you to pay attention to the specific data set. It's the 2020 decennial redistricting data, Public Law 94-171. When I change it to 2010, and this is true no matter what type of table you're working with. If it's ACS, you want to pay attention, are you clicked into 1 or 5 year? With decennial, you want to pay attention to the label of the data. And you'll just want to make sure that you're mapping out data that is applicable and relevant over time. So in this case, when we switched to 2010, it didn't know right off the bat which product for the 2010 census we wanted to click in, and it made a default selection, in this case for the decennial census of island areas, Guam summary file. However, there is another button next to year, and this allows us to choose any of the tables for table P2 from the decennial census data set. So we can use this to switch to different data sets, including the redistricting data, PL 94-171. So I'm going to choose the data set option that says this, 2010 decennial redistricting data. And now the last step is as it's pulling in the data for this table, you do also just want to pay attention to, at the top of your map, the data variable options. Because it resets to a table between different data sets, we do need to specify our data variable. So maybe you want total population as the default, or maybe you want to compare back to the Hispanic or Latino again. You can go through those same steps that we did in the last example to update the data variable if needed. And we can see the loading indicator is working to pull this data, and our map has been updated. We can see the label reflected, Hispanic or Latino, at the top of our map, as well as the legend. And this gives us the 2010 decennial census Hispanic or Latino population across all counties. So now that you know how to change the year and how it's important to pay attention to the data set option that is selected, which also appears at the top of your map, I want to show you some additional ways you can customize your map. One of those is to change the colors on your map. So when you click the colors button, you'll see different options to choose from. These are the colors that would appear in your legend. I'm just going to choose the oranges color palette, just because I like the warmer colors. It's easy for me to see the differences between these colors as well. Another option that you can do is change the transparency. And to illustrate this, I'm going to zoom in on the map. So what we can see here is, just depending on your zoom level, there are some information for reference purposes that are contained in your map, primarily street lines and street labels, but also some other map features that you may see on your map. When you go to colors, you can adjust the transparency. So when you have a lower transparency, you're going to see that you can see the underlying features more easily. And when you use higher transparency settings, you're going to get rich, full thematic map colors in your legend that will actually, when set to 100%, completely cover up all of those features. So this is just an option for you. By default, it's kind of going to give you the middle ground, but if you'd like for more richer colors that are easier to distinguish, go ahead and increase the transparency. And if you'd like to see the street lines and labels more easily, you can decrease the color transparency. Another option for you for your map is to change the legend classification. So by default, it's going to give you 5 colors in your legend. When you click the classes button at the top of your map, it's going to allow you options to change that. So the very first drop-down menu lets you specify how many classes you want in your legend, anywhere between 1 and 9. I'm going to change it to 3. Once I make that selection, notice there are only 3 categories in the left-hand side of our legend. So this just gives us a more simple way to kind of digest the data that are available and see different categories of values for our geographies. For classes, by default, it's going to give you that broken out with natural breaks. You can adjust this to quantile or equal interval. Next to this button, there's also an Identify button. When you click Identify, I'm going to go ahead and click that now. I now have the ability to click any point on my map. So I can see, for instance, there's a darker orange in Arizona. So when I click that area, it's going to tell me, based on my layer, what geography that is. So it gives me the county and the state level. Once you click into county, for instance, I can see that dark area I clicked in is for Maricopa County. You'll also get some additional information, such as the GeoID. When you're ready to exit this functionality, go ahead and click Exit Identify Tool in the upper right. There's also a table button. When you click that, you'll get the data value that you chose for your map across all your geographies, here shown in a table format. And again, it's just that one value. If you would like to access the full set of data for this table, there's another button at the top that says Go to Full Table. I'm going to click that now. Remember, we just looked at P2 a moment ago. It is trying to pull these data for all counties in the U.S. as we speak now. So I'll give that a moment just to load here on screen. And what I wanted to show you is that there may be times, especially when you're mapping and you're working with a large number of geographies, that you may come across these types of messages. It says, sorry, the table is too large to display. We're going to actually talk about this more in another one of our examples, but for now, just want to point out, even if you see this message, do keep in mind there are many options for you to use the data on the site, as well as download the information and, of course, map it. We just map data from this table for all counties. Right, moving on, we looked at a relatively simple table in terms of only having one column of labels from the decennial census. But as you're working with maps, you may find that there are different types of table layouts and some tables that have more complex formats. So I want to take a moment here to show you what this may look like. For instance, in this screenshot, we're showing data profile 4 from the American Community Survey. There are over 100 different data variables for you to choose from. So when you click into the variable option at the top of the map and look in that drop-down menu, you're going to see a long list of options to choose from. And I don't want you to be overwhelmed because there are patterns to the way these data are organized in this list. So primarily, there are 2 different ways that you'll see this play out. One scenario is the rows being the primary way that the data variables appear in the drop-down menu, and the columns being secondary. So in this instance, on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see in all capital letters, housing occupancy. That mirrors the housing occupancy section of this data table. And then it gives us 2 variables, one on total housing units. And these variables both correspond to the very first row of the data table. What you'll notice is that the very first variable in this list ends in something that says estimate, corresponds to the first column, and the second variable ends in %, corresponding to the second column of the data table. And this process repeats itself. As you go, you'll see the rows of the primary way these variables are laid out, and alternating labels for estimate and %, depending on what you want and need. On the flip side of this, the other way that you may see this organized in the data variable drop-down menu is the columns being the primary way the organization is, with the rows being secondary. So in this example, we're looking at table S1701, You can see on the left-hand side, the very first row begins with the word total. And when you click into the drop-down menu on the right-hand side for your map in the data variable, you'll see a set of labels that all begin with the word total. When you scroll through that list, you'll see another set of labels that begin with the words below poverty level. This corresponds to the second column of the table. And a third set of labels that begin with the words percent below poverty level, corresponding to the third column. Within each set of these labels, they will be organized in the very same way that the rows appear in the table. So let's take a look at this in the live site. What I've done first is pull up a data table here showing poverty in King County, Washington. We can see that based on the 2019 American Community Survey, 7.6% of people in King County lived in poverty. But what does this really look like within the county? Well, you can use our maps on data.census.gov to visualize this. So that's what we're going to do in this next example, percent poverty for all census tracts in King County, Washington. So even if you're not familiar with census tracts, one of the great features of our mapping is that you can visualize them without really knowing what each tract means. When you want to go back to the landing page and start fresh, just click the U.S. Census Bureau logo. In this situation, I'm going to use the advanced search to select our criteria. We'll choose geography on the left. We want all census tracts in King County. I'll click on tract. Scroll to the folder for Washington. Then scroll to the folder for King County, Washington. And then mark the checkbox, all census tracts within King County, Washington. We see it in the left as a filter. Next, I'll specify my topic for poverty by choosing topics, income and poverty. I'll choose the folder that says poverty, and then mark the checkbox for poverty. Again, multiple ways you can go about searching. Once you're happy with your criteria on the left, we have our topic and our geography. Go ahead and click the search button in the lower right. And again, we always want to take a peek at the table first. I'll click Tables at the top. And I'm done with the filter, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse that panel and just look at the results. So I can see the first table title says poverty status in the past 12 months. We want to make sure that the table contains the data we want to map out, and we're getting one of those messages again that we saw earlier. There is a link in the lower right of this message that allows you to attempt to open the table anyways. The message just basically says that you have a large number of selections and it's a lot of data to display on screen. You may experience an issue with it. Or once you click that open the table option, it may work for you. It's just kind of giving you, you know, the caution message, but the ability to make the decision for yourself. In this case, it loads up relatively quickly, and we'll want to take a look at the table. So we're looking for percent poverty. What I can see in this table, I'm getting data for Census Tract 1 in King County, Washington. The first column gives me total, and I can see that the first row provides the population for whom poverty status is determined. As I scroll to the right, I can see the second column, the total number of people below the poverty level. In this tract, 996 people. And then once I get to the third column, I can see that corresponds to 12.2% of the population. Scrolling to the right farther, I see that these data are repeated for all of the tracts in my geography selection. So what I want to map out is the third column, first row, and we know that these data contain what we want to map out, so we're ready to create our map. You'll click Maps at the top. Just like before, we'll make sure that it is set to our geography level. Here we can see we are indeed looking at census tracts. It's zoomed us into the census tracts in King County, Washington, and that we're also clicked into the table that contains the data we want to map out, S1701. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse the list of table results, look at the map across our full screen. The last step is to tell the system that we want percent poverty. We'll click Variable in the upper left. Just like before, we get a drop-down menu. We'll click that menu. And this drop-down menu is quite lengthy, but we'll want to explore the look of it and see how it corresponds to the rows and columns. So as I'm scrolling through this, I see a lot of labels beginning with the word total, corresponding to the first column of the table. Then a set of labels that begin with the words below poverty level, corresponding to the second column of the table. And a third set of labels for percent below poverty level, corresponding to the third column. And then within each of these, we had said it's the same exact order as the rows of the table. We wanted third column, first row. It's the first option here within percent below poverty level, population for whom poverty status is determined, estimate. This is percent poverty. So I'll go ahead and click that. And we'll click Variables once again to get this pop-up window out of our view and look at the map. And with that simple click, we can see on the left-hand side, we are looking at percent poverty. It shows percentages in our legend, and we can visually digest this information in a much easier way than we could then, just by looking at the table display. You can zoom into the different areas, and here's what I was mentioning if you're not even familiar with what census tracts are. The farther you zoom in, you'll see boundaries of areas that you recognize. You'll see streets, and you can click between these different areas and see the poverty rates for people that live in that census tract. You can see how it compares to some of the nearby census tracts as well, and just adjust your zoom level to help you make sense of this information. One other thing I wanted to mention here is also how you can save a map. Once you've gone through the steps to create a map, you can copy the URL. So I'm going to actually zoom out a little bit. Copy the URL from our address bar and paste it. So if you were to have clicked on this URL later or you shared it with a colleague, it will take you back to the same map with your geography selection included. It still has the same data variable you selected, percent below poverty level, and it even has the same zoom level, and the map will be centered on the same place where you had it. So just wanted to point out that's the primary way that you can share a map, and you can also take a screenshot of a map if you'd like to have a still image of that map. Moving on to our next example, also want to show how you can map data from economic tables. So we mentioned how important it is to look at the table layout. When you're looking at demographic tables from the American Community Survey or Decennial Census, you're primarily looking at rows and columns. When you're working with data from economic tables, you'll want to be paying attention to things that are data variables versus things that are non-key dimensions. And we're going to talk about both of those really quickly. Your data variables are the primary data values that these tables provide. So in this particular case, we're looking at a table from county business patterns, and we can see the data variables are the number of establishments, annual payroll for these businesses, and how many employees they have. In general, data variables can be continuous numerical variables, or they can be categorical. And the easiest way to know that you're working with a data variable is to simply look at the table and see that this is right aligned. You can see it in the numerical values appearing to the right of the column, as well as the column header. When you go to create your map, data variables will always be in the first drop-down menu after you click on the variables button. So here I'm showing an image where I clicked variables, and the first drop-down menu says number of employees. All of these options are considered data variables, and this is the data that are going to be reflected in your map. Currently, our maps support numerical continuous variables only. You will see some categorical variables for things like noise flags in the drop-down menu. those aren't currently supported in our maps, even though you do see them. Not a huge issue because most people don't care to actually map these items out. I just wanted to flag that for you in case you run across this. The other consideration for economic data tables are things that are non-key dimensions. So your non-key dimensions are categorical variables, and they provide context to fully qualify what each data variable represents. As you're working through this in the screenshot, as I'm showing here, some of your non-key dimensions are things like the industry code, the meaning form of organization code. Are we talking about all businesses, C corporations, nonprofits? Another non-key dimension, employment size of establishments. Again, are you looking at all businesses or businesses with just certain numbers of employees? So each unique combination of a non-key dimension is going to result in a unique data row in the table. And the easiest way to tell what a non-key dimension is to simply look at the table and see that the information is left aligned instead of right aligned. When you go over to create a map, you'll see the non-key dimensions in the variables button, but they're going to be drop-down menus that appear directly below the data variables. They will automatically populate based off the table that you're clicked into, and you'll just want to make sure that you're clicking into them and setting them so your map represents and fully qualifies what it is you intend to map out. We're going to look at this in action right now with a quick example where we'll look at the total number of accommodation establishments for NAICS code 721 for all counties in Florida. Going to the live site here in the upper left, we'll click the U.S. Census logo to start fresh. For this example, I'm going to search by table ID, CB 1900 CBP, and press enter. Again, we always want to look at the table first, so I'll click tables at the top. We see we get the one result that matches our search, and I'll look at the table across my full screen. Just reading the table, again, you want to scroll through the columns. We can see things like NAICS code, meaning of NAICS code, legal form of organization, the number of employees, and all of these things are left aligned. They're just different categories that are available, different ways for slicing and dicing data. And as you scroll to the right of this table, you'll see your data variables are right aligned. Number of establishments, annual payroll, first quarter payroll, and number of employees. So these columns here are your data variables, and these columns on the left are your non-key dimensions that are left aligned. So once we have that, we're familiar with the table layout, we'll go ahead and add our geography selection. We wanted all counties in California or in Florida. One way you can go about adding that geography is to click the Geos button at the top of the table. This works very similarly to the filters we used earlier, where you can click through these categories. Just want to show you one more tip. When you're clicked into a table and use the Geos button, there's something that says summary level. Even if you don't know what summary levels mean, there's a 3-digit codes for the level of geography you're interested in. Once you click that, you're going to get a list of just the types of geographies that are compatible with this one data table. So just a nice way to get a clean list of the options available for this table. I wanted county, so I'll choose 050, the summary level for county, and then just follow the prompt. Choose Florida, and then choose all counties within Florida. Once you've marked a checkbox, it is working to load the data in the background. And again, even if you can't view the table data on screen, you can still map it. So from here, we're going to click the Map button at the top of our screen. We want to make sure we're still clicked into our table, that it set it to the county level, and it zoomed us into counties in Florida. All things automatically done. The last thing we need to do is specify what we want to map out. So here we'll click Variables in the upper left. It says Number of Employees. Again, the data variable corresponding to the right aligned columns in the table are always in the first drop-down menu. So we'll go ahead and click Number of Employees, and you can change that to the different options. We wanted the number of accommodation establishments, so I'll choose Number of Establishments. And here we see the different non-key dimensions. There are 3 of those drop-down menus for NAICS code, legal form of organization, and employment size of establishments. Here I'll click where it says 00, total for all sectors, and we wanted accommodation. So I could scroll through and select NAICS code 721, or you could type in a keyword here into the search bar. These search bars are available for data variables as well, but you do need exact text matches. So I start typing in accommodation and I see 721 accommodation. I'm going to click that NAICS code, and this is going to update our map to show the number of establishments for accommodation businesses rather than for all businesses. So here, once we've done that, we can see our map is updated, and the counties with darker shades of blue have higher number of accommodation establishments. You can click between them and visualize and get that data in more detail. Okay, so we have shown you really the breadth of functionality and the different scenarios you could come across for mapping data across tables. I want to switch gears and show you how you can also use the maps for reference and selection purposes. As a note, when you use our maps for selection, there is a limitation in terms of how long the URL can get. So it's not a hard rule, but generally speaking, if you're selecting fewer than 70 geographies using this method, you'll be fine. If you start selecting more than 70 geographies, it's very possible each individual geography selection is being represented with certain characters that are added to your URL, and if it gets too long, it will give you a message and it won't make the selections correctly. So there's more limited situations where you can use this if you wanted to select geographies in bulk, but certainly works for those situations, and if you just wanted to select a few geographies, and certainly useful. So we want to show that to you. In this example, I'm going to show you how to select census tracts in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Going back to the site here, going to click the U.S. Census logo in the upper left to start us fresh. And for this situation, we want to start by selecting our geography visually with the map. All you have to do is click the Maps link in the upper right. Once you click that, you'll want to make sure on the left-hand side that you're clicked into the selection map. From here, you'll have some options. The first thing you'll want to do is specify the type of geography that you want to make a selection for. And again, the primary geography shown on your map is the layer. So we'll go ahead and click the layer button. I mentioned before how it defaults to state, but you can choose between a wide variety of areas. I am looking for census tract, so I'll click census tract. And now instead of just showing me state boundaries, it is showing me census tract boundaries. It zoomed me into the middle of the map because it doesn't know that I want to make selections in Northeast Indiana yet. So we'll go ahead and just start zooming and scrolling on your map as appropriate. Here we get to some census tracts in Allen County, Indiana. And then once you're ready to make a selection on your map, again, as you zoom in, you'll see more street labels. You can click on an individual tract and click select. Once you've done that, it will appear with a shade of blue on your map. And if you have the filters panel expanded, right now you'll see it says filters 1. It will show that tract selection. So this is the equivalent as if you had went through the process of going through the geography filters as we've done in the first examples and click the checkbox. This is the exact same way of doing it, but visually instead of by going through categories. So you can continue to use this process. I want to show you some additional features though. One is the base map. When you click base map, these are just the reference features that are shown on your map. So by default, it's going to give you basic, which is what we've been looking at thus far. When you go to detailed, you'll see some additional features on your map. The streets will continue to be shown, but you'll also see parks, hospitals, universities, military installations, and a few other areas. So totally up to you, whatever you think is most helpful, whether having the basic, the detailed, or no reference features at all. Generally, when you are using the map to make a selection, you'll at least want to have basic reference features. So I'm going to keep it on basic. Notice one thing that hasn't happened yet. On the left-hand side, we're still getting data for the full set of table results. We have 4,904 tables on our site. It hasn't restricted our tables specifically for tables available for this census tract. As we're working to make this happen automatically, quick thing you can do is just click the reload button at the top for your browser. And this will just refresh everything so that you get tables specifically for this census tract. At the census tract, there are about 1,000 tables available. So just with that process, you can start clicking between the different tables in order to get the data for that. But before we start looking at the data, I just wanted to show one additional functionality for the map as well. We had been using the selection map, and notice that the selection map has fewer buttons at the top. The only button I haven't showed you yet is style. So I want to take a moment to click into style. What style means is the additional boundaries you can choose to display on your map. So we had selected the layer as census tract. That's the primary geography that we're going to be shown on the map, as well as the selections and or data options that we have. If you want additional boundaries shown for reference purposes, you can add them through style. So here I'm just going to choose school district. And in this area, they use unified school district. So we'll be looking for those. You can press Control S and search a keyword if you'd like to get straight to that area. And you'll want to check both of the boxes in most cases. The left box is going to show you the boundary for school district, and the right box is going to show you the label for that school district on your map. And you can do this for as many additional reference boundaries that you want to see. But just to show you what this looks like, you can see now that, again, we're seeing the census tracts with the red boundary and the school districts with the blue boundary. And we can see that there are a number of census tracts that are fully or partially within Fort Wayne Community Schools. If you'd like to select more tracts in bulk, there is a select button towards the upper left of your map. And once you do that, it will change from a typical mouse pointer to this plus sign, and you can draw a rectangle. So going through this process, you can select the tracts that you want to add to your selections a little more easily. And then once you're done with the selection rectangle, once you click selection again, or select button again in the upper left, it will switch you back to a regular cursor. So just different ways that you can go about selecting the geography if you want to do it one by one or in bulk. And if you made a selection that you'd like to remove, here I accidentally selected Census Tract 109, you can simply click on the map and choose Deselect. All right, so why would we go about doing this? It would be in order to select the geographies visually. Once you're done with the selection map, if you click Tables at the top, we've done this a couple times already. Now we're looking at data. There are over 1,000 tables available at the census tract level, and it's showing us these tables for all of the census tracts that we selected on the map just now. So you can use this to browse the full list of tables. You could add additional topic filters if you'd like to narrow this down a little further. For instance, selecting poverty or typing poverty into the single search bar. All right, as we move towards your questions, just want to take a moment to let you know that the development of data.census.gov does depend on your feedback. We continue to make the site work better for you. Please tell us how we can do that by emailing us at census.data@census.gov. We'll also take your data questions. And to stay up to date with our latest educational opportunities, data releases, and system updates, please visit the link on the left to sign up for our email updates, where we will send you our monthly newsletter. And if you're looking to take a deep dive into the functionality of data.census.gov, we have a variety of workshops that are available in a number of different sessions. There is a limit of up to 50 people who can join each session. And these are really 3-hour time slots where you can take a deep dive into really the full breadth of functionality of the site that data.census.gov offers at a basic level and building from there, with the opportunity for you to get your questions answered from Census Bureau staff and practice exercises in real time. If you'd like to sign up for a workshop, please visit the link. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Deb.
Great, thank you so much, Tyson. Okay, so in a few moments, we will begin our question and answer session. So if you haven't submitted your question yet, please do so now. Before we do that, though, I would like to invite you all to take a moment and share your thoughts about today's webinar through an evaluation survey. You already know this, but your feedback is absolutely invaluable to us. It helps us design future training sessions and lets us know how we can improve on our webinars. So I am sending that link via the chat now. And additionally, if you have questions remaining after our session concludes today, please feel free to reach out to one of the email inboxes listed here. If you are a member of the public and have questions related to data.census.gov, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination at census.data@census.gov. And for members of the media, you may contact the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. So with that, let's go ahead and start taking some questions. All right, let me pull them up. All right, our first question is from Julia. Is there a way to aggregate groups of counties together and map as groups?
Great, thank you for the question. So we don't have the ability to aggregate geographies on data.census.gov. I'm not aware of any mapping tools at the Census Bureau that would allow you to do that and get a combined area that you would visually get data for on your map. There is the Census Business Builder Regional Analyst Edition does allow you to aggregate multiple geographies and then get a report for that aggregated area. So if you're looking to use that functionality, I would recommend checking out that tool maybe, but they wouldn't have the full set of data like we do have on data.census.gov. So it would be another example of something that would be good feedback for us to hear, things we can take back to our team, or a good example of something to send to census.data@census.gov. In the meantime, it would just be selecting the individual geographies on your map.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Alana. Can a map be created at a city-town level?
Yes, thank you for the question. We certainly have maps at the city-town level. At the Census Bureau, you'll typically see what you think of as a city or town categorized as a place level geography or as a county subdivision. Some states in the Northwest, in the Northeast and Midwest have towns or townships. Those are typically county subdivisions. The rest of the states primarily use the place level geography. So I'd recommend checking out both of those areas and see which one best meets your needs.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Jesse. And the question reads, is veteran or military connected status available as a variable?
Yes, we have data from the American Community Survey for the armed forces population. And then we also have more data for the veterans population. And you can actually, I had selected a filter for poverty. You could select a filter for veterans, and you could look at data, for instance, the total number of veterans, the percent veterans, as well as characteristics of veterans, things like their income or educational attainment as an example. It would just be a matter of finding the correct data table and then creating a map from there.
All right, thank you. Our next question is from Juan Carlos, and it reads, is there an option to visualize a map in full screen?
The closest full screen option, I'm not sure when this question came in, you can make these panels collapse. I'm going to click back over to maps. Make sure that the panels for filters and results are collapsed. We don't have any full screen options beyond this, so this would be your best bet to get as close to full screen on data.census.gov.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mark. Is there a feature where I could determine the percentage of a tract that is in a school district?
Yeah, for that question, I would recommend checking with our geography staff. You can email us and we can make sure that we have the correct email to forward that to you. I can't think of it off the top of my head, or maybe one of my colleagues can share it in the chat. There are tools that they would be able to direct you to that would have that information. We don't have anything on data.census.gov that has that, but we certainly would be able to point you to some resources that could help with that.
All right, thank you so much. And the last question that we have received so far says, is there a print feature that would export a PDF or something similar?
Thank you for the question. We have not officially developed print functionality for the map. You can press Control P while you're on a map, and that will give you the current print functionality of a map. It's not going to be the cleanest thing. It's not official. It's not fully developed, but that's one option for you. I do recommend taking a screenshot of the map over then pressing Control P. It's going to give you better output that's more fully qualified and complete and will look a little bit better. Beyond that, we haven't developed a PDF functionality or any other types of export features, but we would definitely take that feedback to the team and consider it as a possible feature enhancement.
All right, thank you so much, Tyson. At this time, we don't have any additional questions in the chat, so I'll go ahead and turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. Just want to remind you of some additional resources for you to learn more. Today we took a deep dive into mapping, but there are lots of additional features, functionality, and data on data.census.gov. When you click the Help button in the upper right, this will take you to our recorded webinars, short videos, PDFs, and answers to your FAQs. And as a final resource, just want to also let you know about our data dissemination specialists. You can reach them by visiting the contact information on this slide if you're looking for training for your local area. There is a data dissemination specialist assigned to your area that would be more than happy to help you with your data needs and do specialized custom local trainings. So please let us know if we can help you with that as well. Thank you again so much for tuning in today. Those were the last items that I had. Hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.